Hey, this is Arthur Hill, Chief Technical Strategist at TrendInvestorPro.com. You are tuned into our YouTube channel for our weekly video analysis. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. So today we're going to look at biotechs. We'll see that IBB is testing its 200-day moving average and is at a moment of truth. And then we're going to dive into the biotech group and look at the top 10 holdings and see which of those stand out. And in particular, it looks like Gilead Sciences is trying to turn the corner. And I'm going to show you the trend composite indicator because it is on a bullish signal. Let's hit the charts. So I have a zillion chart list at Stock Charts, and I think that's one of the great features of Stock Charts is the way you can create and manipulate your chart list so you can create an order in which you see your stocks. You can look at groups of stocks together very easily. And so I've got a list here. It's called Stocks IBB, and you can see I've got different ETFs, and I've put stocks in those chart lists. And so what I did was I added the top 10 components for IBB, as you can see there. I threw in SPY to give us a sense of how the broader market is doing. And then I used a prefix here, AAA IBB, to put it at the top, and AAA XBI to put it second, because this is by alpha order on the sort. So if we have a chart list, then we can easily manipulate it to see the data. So what we can do here is we can go to summary format, and I'm going to have to resize this window after I do that. So here is summary format, and we've got intraday working here, and we can see that most of the components are up with Regeneron and CGen leading the way and outperforming XBI, which is actually up more than IBB today. And we can also use this sort period, which I like to do. And, we saw a change in the market over the last few months. And I'm seeing some biotechs and healthcare, and of course, all the commodity ETFs are outperforming as well. But if we look at this 3-month sort, we can see where the leaders are recently. Alexion, AstraZeneca, Amgen, which is forming a big base, as we'll see, Regeneron, they're all up more than the S&P 500, SPDR, SPY. But then we have Gilead, which is, keeping pace. It's slightly positive. Biogen is also slightly positive. And then these other ones are down. Actually, IBB is down. And then XBI is down a little bit more than IBB over this 3-month period. And Illumina is the worst performing. But I want to look at the individual charts. And I'll show you there's one more thing I like to do. I like to look at a CandleGlance chart. And that way I can see very quickly which ones might have interesting charts within this sector and which ones are outperforming and underperforming. For example, look at Alexion. You can see that big gap and breakaway gap there and move to new highs. And it's doing that while XBI has been moving lower pretty much. And then you can see the difference between these two right quickly. IBB is at its 200-day and testing it for the 1, 2, 3, 4th time. And then XBI dipped below the 200-day a couple of times there. So the next view I'm going to look at in this chart list would be 10 per page. So I went from CandleGlance to 10 per page. And I set up the chart the way I want it and applied that style to all the charts. And what I did was I've got an 11-month bar chart, and I've got a 200-day moving average, and then I've got the price relative to SPY, which is the black line. That's the price relative. And then I got price relative to IBB. And the reason this one is a flat red line is because it's IBB relative to IBB. So it's going to be just a flat line. And you'll see the difference on the next chart. But if we look at this chart here for IBB, what's interesting is you had a resistance zone here, and you had a breakout, and we basically returned to that resistance zone. So we've had a big breakout, a big move higher, a sharp decline, And now we're testing that breakout zone and also the rising 200-day moving average. So there's a big battle going on here. If you really wanted, you could focus on this swing here and look for a reversal, maybe above 150 would be a bullish reversal for IBB, and maybe means that it is going to successfully test that 200-day and move higher. Now, if we look at IBB relative to SPY, SPY has been moving to new highs here, and IBB has been moving down, so that's why it's underperforming. Now, the next one we're going to look at is going to be XBI, and then we can see the XBI relative to IBB. You can see it's been underperforming since February. And this is made up of smaller biotech stocks. It's equally weighted. I think there's like 100 biotechs in the XBI. It's also in a downtrend. Well, it's below its 200-day moving average. I wouldn't call XBI in a long-term downtrend because it looks more like a correction. But this one did make lower lows here and below the 200-day. So it is not as strong as IBB. Now, we look at some of the components. I'm seeing some strength in a couple of them. So here's the chart of Alexion, and of course, it is just up and to the right. So it's in a very strong uptrend, but there's no setup there. What I'm looking for is some sort of a chart setup that gives me a trigger to turn bullish and expect higher prices. Of course, if you're in an uptrend, you expect the trend to continue. That's kind of the default there, so you expect higher prices. But man, look at Amgen here. This is just one massive consolidation. Prices have been basically between 210 and 260. And so it looks like, maybe it's a continuation head and shoulders of some sort, but clearly there's a lot of resistance here in this area. We'll call it 260-ish. And if you can get a breakout there, that's going to be bullish for Amgen. And if you look here, you can see it had this gap down and it filled it real quick. And that's quite a positive sign. So if it can follow through and break out there, that is going to be a bullish development. Now, the next one we want to look at is AstraZeneca. And it, of course, is traded over in the UK. And it was declining here into March. And it is starting to break out. It's not that exciting. I don't see that much there. We all have our preferred chart setups, and mine is usually some sort of consolidation and a breakout or some sort of bullish continuation pattern. And that's what we could have here on Heliad, which is next. But looking at Biogen, now what's interesting here is I think there's a bullish continuation pattern. You can see you have this falling, or it's like a triangle, really. So basically, you had this whatever happened here. You can go back and search the news for that day. But clearly, it was a lot of noise. Then you based for a couple months and then surged above the 200-day and then kind of consolidated around that 200-day. And now it looks like we're breaking out here. So Biogen IDEC is looking more promising, or they just call it Biogen now. Now here is Gilead, and this one looks very promising because you can see a couple of lows here in that 56 area and then a break above that intermittent high. So that would be like a double bottom. And then after the breakout, you have a throwback. So you come back to the breakout zone and then we start bouncing. But the bigger pattern, I think, is going to be a big triangle. It kind of looks like that Biogen chart we saw before. So you have a big advance, a big consolidation around the 200-day, and we're breaking out. So Gilead is looking promising. And I'm going to move over to Stock Charts ACP because I want to show you the trend composite indicator on this stock. So here I am on Stock Charts ACP, and I've got the Gilead chart pulled up, and I want to show you this trend composite. It's part of the Trend Investor Pro Indicator Edge plugin that you can see there. If you click on that plugin link, you can see that and find out more details. And if I look at the indicator over on the left here, I click on settings. There you can see all the inputs for it. I'm not going to go over all of them. There are plenty of details in the written information on this indicator. But the settings you can adjust to your your preferences. I put my preferences because I'm trying to capture this like 3 to 6 month trend change. And so those indicators are set accordingly. And so what it does is it aggregates the signals in 5 different indicators, trend following indicators and signals. And when 3 of the 5 are bullish, that's 3 bullish, 2 bearish, you get a +1. So we got a +1 here in the second half of January. And then we had 4 bullish and 1 bearish, so we got a +3. And then in February, we got all 5 bullish. And then 1 fell off, and then the other one came back on. And currently, all 5 trend indicators are bullish. Things like Bollinger Bands, Keltner channels. We also have the direction of a moving average. Is the moving average moving up or moving down in there? And so this tells me that the bigger trend is up, and I want to look for bullish continuation patterns when the bigger trend is up. And then you can see here, there's that triangle that I was drawing on the other chart. So this is like a big bullish continuation pattern, and we're getting a breakout. Now, I'm not seeing too much of interest in the other stocks in this ETF. And that's the way it is when I'm looking at stocks. You know, I look at 100 charts and maybe 5, 10 will catch my interest, usually just 5. You know, the other 90, 95, pass, 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 pass. And that's the way it is. I know what I'm looking for. And if I don't see it, I just move on to the next chart. Now, Illumina, admittedly, is a bit interesting here because it's had this big move up and it's come back to the falling 200-day, but it had this gap up that it couldn't hold and it filled it. So the fact that it couldn't hold this gap and broke below this low here, this little support level, puts it off my radar. And you can see it's underperforming Biotech IBB, which is the red line, and it's underperforming SPY. So I would not do anything on this one. You know, it's on my chart watch. I always watch it. Here's Moderna. It's kind of chopping around in this big range, so nothing going on here. Here is Regeneron. Now, Regeneron is getting rejuvenated since March here. It's had a bounce, but it's still within a bigger downtrend. So nothing really setting up there either. And then if I go next here, we can get to the last 2. Here's CGen. It hit a 52-week low there, so not on my radar. And then that is SPY. And then there is Vertex. And it's kind of consolidating here. Maybe there's something going on here because you can see that it's got a clear resistance level to watch. And if it can break out there, that might be an interesting play for a further move higher. But it's not really doing anything when these other ones are setting up bullish like Gilead. So if you'd like to know more about trendinvestorpro.com, you can click on the link in the description below. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again next week. Have a great day.